Hi, I'm Neil at Italia Autos, and in this video I'm going to be doing a buyer's guide on the Alfa Romeo 159. Originally bought out in 2005 and in production until 2011. There were several different models throughout the range, ranging from your base trim right up to the top spec TI trim, which this one is. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the faults I regularly find on these vehicles. You don't get them with all vehicles, it's just a buyer's guide, so when you are going to look at a vehicle, it's things for you to look out for and watch out for when you're on your test drive and when you're looking around it. Right. Now I'm going to be specifically talking about UK cars because there were different engines in different countries and different spec levels, so I'm mainly going to be talking about the UK models. When the 159 was first introduced, there was the Turismo and Lusso models. Later on in its life they brought out the Alfa TI. The Lusso trim does seem to be the main one you see around. With that you get leather interior, different alloy wheels and a few extra little options on the interior. This is the Alfa Romeo 159 Ti in sports wagon form. It's a 1.9 diesel engine. It's the most popular that you'll probably see for sale. The Ti is the rarest model. You do get several versions of the Ti. Some come with side skirts, some don't. You do also get different trim levels on the interior. The later versions are the best ones to get because you do get a little improvement on build quality, and the leather seats are better quality. It's a 6-speed manual front wheel drive. This car is in metallic black, one of the most popular colours. Let's just have a little walk around the car now. Okay, right, let's talk about some of the main problems that you do tend to find on the Alfa 159s. The fog lights can start to lose their chromeness inside the lights and they will turn yellow. Simple enough to replace. Pull the grille out, 3 Phillips screws and 1 electrical connection, and off they pop. They're easy enough to change. Headlights can also lose their chrome inside, and to change those you do need to remove the front bumper. Front badges, as with all Alfas, because of the complicated design, they do tend to fade, but they're not expensive to replace. I've also found on quite a few that the chrome on the front grills starts to flake off as well, so keep an eye out for that. Wiper linkages can also be quite delicate, so just make sure that when you look at the car that the wiper arms aren't fouling the bonnet. That is normally a sign that the wiper linkage is worn out. Also give them a wobble and make sure nothing's loose, as they're all tight. I'll speak about this more later on in the video, but the wheels do tend to pick up a lot of curb rash and knocks, just purely because they're so large, being in 19-inch form. You do tend to get a lot of stone chips towards the back of the car. Same with the 159, the Brera, the Saloon and the Estate, which this is. You always seem to suffer with them there. You can rectify that by fitting some front mud flaps, and that will deflect a lot of the stones off the tyres. There is also an option of auto folding wing mirrors. There should be a button on the window switches which will make them fold in, so make sure that you operate that when you're looking at the vehicle, and they should both fold in for you. Rear of the vehicle, most cars come with parking sensors. The sensors or the connections can sometimes fail. They're quite simple to replace, but you do have to take the bumper off. The rear lights can be quite delicate. If you have any knocks, they can sometimes crack. They can also have a fault where you get water ingress into them. But again, they're not expensive to replace and they are fairly straightforward. Rear badges, like this one has, isn't in the best of condition. Again, quite easy to replace. On the sports wagon, they do come with a rear wiper motor. As it doesn't get used very often, it does tend to seize up. So just check when you are testing it that the rear wiper motor works. If it doesn't, it's just a case of disassembling it, getting rid of a lot of the rust and popping it back together, and it should work again then. Onto the interiors now. We'll start with the doors. A few regular problems you can have here is these bits of trim inside here. They easily fall out, break and go missing. and also the mats which go inside the window switches, they are normally missing, like this one is. On the inside of the door, you've got your electric window regulator. They are quite common for failing. They're not expensive to replace, and it only takes about an hour's labour, so sort of around £100, then you can have yourself a new window regulator fitted. Door locks, they can misbehave. There's a rod which goes from the door handle down to the door lock. That can sometimes break and snap. Also, the motor itself on the lock can sometimes play up. The window motors can also be a problem. They fit together with two plastic cogs, and they can sometimes wear out. Normally a new window motor will fix the problem. They're about £20, not expensive to replace at all. The leather on the seats is quite hard wearing. You will get some wear on the seat bolster, but it is quite easy to recolour. Option of electric and heated seats. This one has just got the heated seats, so they keep your bum nice and warm. The electrical seats that you can get them in are full operation and work very well indeed. Okay, inside the car, it's very well put together. The build quality is very good, a lot better than the previous Alfa 156 was. It's a very comfortable place to be, and also very spacious. You do also get a lot of the mod cons with these. You can have optional auto wipers, auto lights. You can have an option of a screen sat nav. You've got climate control and plenty of cubby holes and places to put things. The only thing lacking inside 159s is some decent bottle holders. You have only got one in there, and that's your lot. So you can be fighting over that with your passenger. They are fairly well wearing on the interior. You will just get some wear and tear on the steering wheel, mainly on the chrome plastic. And also, if you've had a car which has had lots of key rings and keys on the key, you will get a lot of marks there. That's got a few chips, but not many. All the dials and instrumentations and switches, they all tend to work fairly well. You can sometimes have a fault with the switches on here. They won't operate the infotainment buttons very well, so you'll need to get a replacement one of those. They can be quite expensive, about £100 and an hour's labour to change one of the stalks. Never really have any problems with any of the gauges. They all work as they should. The stereos are fairly reliable. You can obtain the code quite easily. If you do need a code, just give me a shout and I can sort one of those out for you. The climate control dials can sometimes fail, and some of the buttons can stop working, but they're not expensive to replace. Another little problem which is easily rectified is the gear knob can become loose, and it can wobble around and rattle around when you're driving. All you need to do is pop the top up, tighten the nut up underneath here, and then pop the top back on, and that'll be the wobbly gear knob all sorted. But the interiors of 159s are very robust, and other than a couple of minor little niggles, you don't tend to have many problems with them at all. Okay, now onto the underside of Alfa 159s. They do suffer with exactly the same problems as the Brera review I did. It's rust on the rear suspension components. They do suffer from these rear arms rusting through all the way along there. Subframes do rust away as well. This one isn't too bad, it's just got some surface rust on it. These arms can't really be welded because they are removable suspension parts, so you do have to replace them with another item rather than trying to weld them back up. Another problem is broken springs. This one had a broken spring and I have replaced that. They tend to snap along the bottom or along the top, so do watch out for that when you're looking for cars. Exhaust joints do tend to rust out, which is typical of any car really. You'll find you'll get a little blow through the joints, or the hangers will rust away. The floor pan itself is normally pretty good. You don't tend to get any rust on them at all because they are pretty much galvanised all the way along the floor, or well covered in sealant. Another regular problem we have is the DPFs. A lot of people this year removed them and put straight through pipes on, and now it's illegal not to have one on a car, so people are rushing to buy them now, and they're getting quite expensive. So do have a look underneath and just make sure you've got something that looks similar to that with a sensor going into it, because if it's missing, it could be quite an expensive bill. Front subframes, as I've spoken to before on many of reviews is the under tray on them does cause the subframe to rot. This one is still on this car, so I'm probably going to be taking it off. But they do tend to rust mainly where the front covers sit. But other than that, they are fairly straightforward underneath. There's no major other issues other than that. You can sometimes get these DPF sensors break, but they're only about £20–30 to replace. There's also a little DPF pipe behind there, which can sometimes break and present a whole host of problems, but it's just a pipe that's broken. And there we go. Let's have a look at the steering and suspension now. Now, this is a 159 Ti, so it's got the 19-inch wheels. They do tend to bend quite easily, just purely for the fact they don't have much rubber on the tyres. So do make sure that they're not bent on the inside or on the outside, and make sure that the tyre wears nice and even, because they do like to get through tyres. The ride can be quite hard on these 19s as well, so if you want a soft ride, you're probably better off going for a non-Ti version, which has got higher suspension and smaller wheels. The front suspension is a double wishbone setup, like on most Alfas. You do tend to suffer with faulty upper wishbones. This one's gone. I've got to replace this one today. If you can see that, the wishbone up there moved. The bush has gone in that. You can also suffer with broken springs on the front as well. Lower wishbones can also fail. They are relatively straightforward to replace. I have done a guide on changing these already. I will put a link to that in the video description. They are quite expensive to purchase. They're about £130–150 for each wishbone, so it can be quite an expensive job. So if you get some knocking on the suspension, just budget that you are going to have to spend some money. The upper wishbones aren't too expensive. They're around £70. Now onto the engine bay on 159s. Several engines are available, right from petrol, diesel, V6 engines. The ones I personally prefer are the diesel engines, the 1.9, the 2-litre diesel and the 2.4 diesel. The 2.4 diesel has the most power, but it is sort of the most agricultural diesel of the lot. You do get a lot of diesel knock from it, but it is a nice engine to have. The 2-litre is the rarest of the diesel engines. And they're probably, again, that's probably the better one to go for if you can get your hands on it, but you do have to pay a premium for the 2-litre diesel engine cars. The run-of-the-mill diesel is the 1.9. It's 150 brake horsepower. It's fast enough, they drive well enough, they're easy enough to maintain. So that's probably the preferred engine of choice as a daily driver in a 159. And personally, I would tell you to avoid the petrol engines. Well, the JTS petrol engines, purely because they're not very good, they're not very reliable, they're expensive to maintain, and they're expensive for parts as well. So yeah, do avoid the JTS ones. I'm not a big fan of those engines. There is also the TBI engine, amazing engine, but it is quite rare, and you do again pay a premium for it. So you are better off just sticking to the diesel engines in the 159 range. They do also suffer with the bonnet cables stretching and rusting through, and the bonnet catch is breaking as well, but this one's all fine. Onto under the bonnet. This is the 1916 valve engine. It's a good robust unit. You don't tend to get any problems with it, other than every now and again you get injector seals going, injectors going down. You do get problems with the EGR systems. Again, with all diesel engines, you get a problem with exhaust gas issues with things blocking up, but as long as you use them once a week for a nice motorway journey, you should be relatively trouble free. Let's take the cover off. This is the engine. You do sometimes get leaks from this pipe. As the cars are getting older now, the seals can go at the bottom of the injector and you can have diesel blowing up through there, but again, they're not expensive to repair. Worst case is you need to get an injector refurbished, and you're looking at about £60 an injector. The swirl flaps are built into the manifold on this one. There's no bar along the top actuating them like there are on the earlier diesels, so there's nothing visibly you can check here. You'll just have symptoms of faults of poor starting and smoke out the exhaust. One thing I would make sure to check is that the service history is up to date. Make sure that the cam belt's done. It should be done every 4 years or 48,000 miles. Servicing done every 12,000 miles, but I would recommend it's changed every 8,000 miles just to keep everything clean inside the engine. Other problems I find on these is the airbox is right at the bottom of the car. When you hit low curbs and things like that, you can smash the airbox quite easily because there's nothing protecting it. You can sometimes get these pipes here split, not very often, but it's mainly on the joins here. And air can get in, but you can sort of temporarily bodge them until you can get a new pipe if need be. Another problem is the coolant reservoir cap. They can sometimes seize on, and when you unscrew it, half the cap stays in, and it can be a little bit of a pain to get a filter inside them, and sometimes that can become dislodged, and it makes weird gargling noises and funny noises come from this area. Sometimes people diagnose it as a faulty power steering rack and it's pushing air through, but it's actually just a filter inside here which is gone. So I would have a look at that if you are getting funny noises from it. Other than that, these are pretty solid engines. I do like them. They are, you know, an old diesel engine now, but they're a good, reliable unit. I've put the 159 in a class of a motorway cruiser. It's not the best handling of cars in the world, but they are very nice and comfortable to drive. As the 159s have got older, my heart has swung to them a little bit more than they used to. When they were new cars, I wasn't a huge fan. I originally didn't think they were very much of an Alfa because they were produced jointly with GM. They are very capable cars, lots of room for luggage, lots of room for passengers, all your normal mod cons that you could ask for. They are fairly cheap to purchase now. You can probably get yourself a half decent high miler one for, you know, £1,200, right the way up to still over £10,000 for some of the desirable TBI TI versions. So this is just a 19 Ti. You can buy one of these from about 2,500 to 5,000 now, depending on the mileage and spec, but you will pay a bit of a premium on the Sportswagen. That was my guide on the Alfa 159. Don't get put off by the problems I've said. They are fairly reliable cars. You just have regular problems like you do on all cars. So thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.